going on, everybody? Caleb here, and I just wanted to come to you today and talk to you about my picks for worst albums of 2018. This is not an official Metalhead Central episode. Again, the first one of 2019 will be dropping after Legion of the Damned's new album drops, and I get to listen to that. But today I'm just going to come to you and talk to you about what I felt were really the bottom of the barrel as far as rock and metal are concerned for this year. There were a bunch of albums that I personally didn't enjoy that a lot of other people I find in the rock and metal communities did enjoy, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why. To each their own, I guess. These are not going to go in any particular order, although I will be telling you that there is an album on here that I do consider the absolute worst of 2018, and I will be getting to that. Other than that, we're not going to go in any particular order, so let's go ahead and get started. The first album I'm going to talk about is Tribulations Down Below. This is an album that is one of those, like I was saying, that a lot of my fellow metal fans really did enjoy. I didn't. I really enjoyed their album Children of the Night that they released a few years ago. It was a very good album, had a lot of that dark gothic tinge to it, and I felt like they dropped that a little bit here in favor of going a little more deathy as far as metal is concerned. There was one good song on the album, so I'm not going to consider it the absolute worst of the year, but other than that, it was just dull. It was boring. It was forgettable. The Lament was the only good song on the album, and I could listen to that a little bit, but other than that, it was a really, really dull album. It was just bleh. Next, I want to talk about Therion's Beloved Antichrist. This album is actually the video that I posted that has gotten the most views to date on my channel. And since my channel is tiny, that's not saying much as far as the grand scope of YouTube is concerned, but I don't care. This was an album that I got a lot of flack for reviewing it and talking about how metal and opera, at least in this sense, don't really work. It was bad. It didn't work. It was way too long. 3 discs, 3 hours. No, no. It was dull through the first album. It was depressing through the second one, and it was just falling apart by the end of the third one. It just didn't work for me. It was a bad album. It was so bland and forgettable that I can't think of a song that I enjoyed off of it. I think there might have been one, but one song out of 30-ish tracks, no. It's not an album. It doesn't work. It might work better as a stage performance, but as an album where you actually sit down, either on Spotify like I do, or you pop the CD in and you listen to it, it just doesn't work. It doesn't work. It doesn't flow. And so it's on here. It just didn't work for me. It's just a bad album. Next, we have what I consider the worst hard rock album of the year, and that's Pop Evil's self-titled album. I gave this one a really, really low score because it was Pop Evil trying to be political. There was a song on here that I actually did enjoy, and that was Waking Lions. It was a good song. Be Legendary was also a pretty good song. But other than that, it was really, really bleh. It was just bland. I mean, A Crime to Remember, the same shoddy beat through the chorus, and it just, no. It was a bad album. And other than Waking Lions and Be Legendary, there's not a song on there that I can remember listening to where I was just like, it's okay. They were going, on one of their songs, they were going to try and spread a really good message. Hey, let's stop racism. Let's look at each other as human beings and not by the color of our skin. That's a great message to spread. But sadly, they spread it in one of the most boring, bland, forgettable songs of the year. So Pop Evil's self-titled album, in my opinion, worst rock album of 2018. Next album I'm going to speak of here is Sonder by Tesseract. And this is another album that I got a lot of flack about in the comments section for reviewing and giving it a bad review. And Tesseract is not my favorite band in the world, but I really enjoyed their album Altered State. So I figured I'll give Sonder a chance. And I really liked the single off of the album, Luminary. It was a really good song. But again, the only good song on the album. Other than that, it was just your standard progressive gent whatever that's really not as good as Periphery is. And it didn't work. It didn't work. Their drummer is fantastic, but other than that, the album, it didn't flow. There was no beautiful atmospheric harmony like there was on Altered State. And that was the main thing I got a lot of flack for in the comments was just not knowing a lot about the group, I guess, was the main argument of whomever it was that commented on it. They were like, yo, you don't know the band, you don't know the band, you don't know how they change between albums. And I'm like, well, okay, they can change between albums all they want to. It doesn't mean I'm going to like it. So, for me, Tesseract, Sonder, bad album. Bad album. You want good prog metal from this year, go listen to Between the Buried and Me. Next album I'm going to talk about is the absolute worst, the absolute positive worst of this year, Aura Noir's self-titled album. It falls under what I call the B's, the bad B's. Boring, bland, black metal. That's what it is. Boring, bland, black metal. If you want to add 3 B's and an F, boring, bland, forgettable black metal. It was so dull. It was so dull. I can think of a million black metal songs that I like better than anything off of this album. And it was just awful. It was really, really hard to get through. It was just slow. It was one of those albums that felt like you were working while you were listening to it. A good black metal album, it should flow, you know. You can say that for every genre, but especially for black metal, because black metal has that element of just, it's quick, but it's also just heart-wrenchingly just cold. And you want to feel that coldness, but you don't want to feel it so much that you feel like you're drowning in it and you cannot get out. And Aura Noir have successfully done that. Now, maybe for some people that's their cup of tea. Brilliant. Bravo. Go listen to it all you want. It's not my cup of tea. I mean, just a bad black metal album. That's all I can say about it. Really bad. Next, I'm going to talk about Thou's Magus. Crazy album. But crazy does not necessarily equate to great. This was an album that, once again, I forgot about right after I listened to it. And it has not stuck in my mind. I actually forgot that I reviewed this until I flipped open my review archives here and I was like, oh, I reviewed that album. Yay, I reviewed it. I didn't give it a very good score, hence why I've forgotten about it. But yeah, it wasn't a good album. It was not a good album at all. It was just, like I said, really, really, really forgettable. Was it as bad as Aura Noir's? Not quite, but I would consider Magus the second worst album of 2018. 2 more albums to talk about here. First one is Voivod's The Wake, and I hate doing this to Voivod because they are such a legend in the metal genre, especially to progressive metal fans. But, as I've said repeatedly on this channel, I am not a prog metal fan, so I was a little nervous going into listening to this album. I put it on, the first song blew me away. It was really good. But then the album just tumbled after that. It was really, really bad. And it didn't work. I mean, there was no flow to it. The dynamics were off. Everything about it just was really, really, really forgettable. Voivod's The Wake, definitely one of the worst albums of 2018. And again, like I said, I hate doing this to a legend in the genre. I absolutely hate doing this to a legend in the genre. Final album I want to talk about today on this video, Azusa, Heavy Yoke. Now, this is one that I sort of threw a quick review in at the beginning of my best of 2018 video that I did. And I want to talk about it just a little bit more. Again, one of the worst of 2018. the lead singer, she was doing some interesting stuff with her voice, but it wasn't enough to keep me hooked. Someone doing something interesting with their voice does not mean that the music behind it is going to be good. I could take my voice and auto-tune the heck out of it and put really bad, boring pop stuff behind it. And you might think, oh, that vocal effect is interesting, but the rest of the music is boring as heck. And you would be right to think so. And that's what I think they're doing here. Again, of course, they don't use pop music. They use boring, bland metal. And it's just, it grates. After a little, it just grates. It feels like they're trying to be some smash up of Code Orange and the Dillinger Escape Plan, if I could put it that way. It just doesn't work. It doesn't have enough melody to grip me. It doesn't have enough dynamic changes to grip me. So there you have it. My worst of 2018. I really, really, really disliked all of these albums. Again, Metalhead Central episode 6 coming as soon as Legion of the Damned drops their new album the first week of the new year. I'll get a review for that filmed, and then after that, I am stoked because January 11th, Soilwork's new album drops. I can't wait to hear it. I've been so impressed with the first 2 singles off of it. I think it's going to be an incredibly impressive effort. Hopefully Soilwork doesn't make this list at the end of next year. There's so many great bands that are releasing albums next year. Slipknot, Within Temptation, In Flames just announced. You got 2 melodic death legends that are going to be releasing albums next year, Soilwork and In Flames. And I'll be reviewing both of those, as well as everything else. So be sure to stay tuned to Metalhead Central. Thank you, guys.